He's John Timpane.
And he's Don Rooney.
And this is
The Musical Innertube.
Now, you may ask, why is this podcast called The Musical Innertube?
And we may reply, because that's its name, of course.
Now, how did this podcast get that name?
Back in college, we hosted a radio show. Once, we tried to introduce a soothing musical interlude.
Instead, we messed up and wound up introducing a soothing musical innertube, and the name stuck.
So here we are, hundreds of years later, still talking
to interesting people about their interesting lives.
Difference makers who really make a difference.
This coming Sunday, October 29th, a festival will be held in central Pennsylvania to support the research into CIRS. That's chronic inflammatory response syndrome. It's something that potentially affects thousands of people who are unaware they have it because not many doctors are trained to spot it from the symptoms. Talking with us about CIRS and the festival today are Olivia Farabaugh. She's a singer-songwriter originally from Palmyra in central Pennsylvania. She's been on the show before. She now lives in Nashville, and in the midst of her career, she has to deal with the effects of CIRS. Also joining us is Elizabeth Cripe. She's a co-founder and executive director of Malachi's Message. Elizabeth and her family also suffer from a problem with mold, which is very much like the problems that people with CIRS get. So both of you, welcome to the Musical Innertube.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. It's so good to be back.
What is it like to have CIRS? I mean, we should talk about the syndrome itself and why it's so hard for doctors to find it. So first of all, what's it like to live with it? Can you give us a sense of what the symptoms are like, where it hurts?
Yeah, so CIRS, it stands for chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So a lot of people develop this after exposure to mold. So the perfect storm of toxin exposure can activate a gene that 24% of people have, and it could lay dormant your whole life. And you could not know you even have it until you have a perfect storm of toxin exposure that activates this gene. And then once it's activated, your body can't process out toxins like it normally should. And they just recirculate and then cause the body to try to kind of fight against itself. And there's so many different symptom clusters that people can have. And that's what I think is so hard about finding that diagnosis. And especially for like mainstream medicine, this isn't really on their radar yet. So a lot of times people will spend years like following their symptoms, which could look like other things when they're really not getting to the root cause. And so for me, a lot of that, my symptoms really kind of boiled down to flu-like symptoms. So it kind of felt like the day before you get the flu, like that's how it was on a daily basis. And then also, I was suffering a lot with brain fog and sinus issues and just chronic sinusitis. And so it was really interesting to finally get the diagnosis and then look at, there's the thing called the biotoxin pathway of how it affects each part of your body as it goes through. And it was amazing. Finally, I saw all of my symptoms and everything just made sense. Once I started reading down, I'm like, all the things that no doctors could really understand or explain all of a sudden made sense. So we're really trying to raise awareness out there. So for me, it took 4 years to find a true diagnosis and then get proper treatment. But for a lot of people, I mean, that's a short amount of time. For a lot of people, it's well over a decade, if not longer. So
yeah, Elizabeth, your whole family underwent problems when you moved into an apartment. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we moved into an apartment, and 6 months later, after over 300 doctor visits, ER visits, my throat had closed 3 times. I was taken by ambulance with my babies there with me watching this happen. And thank goodness, we were seeing an allergist at the time that had given me what they would give a newborn infant in regards to allergy shots. And my throat started to close. And he said, there's something in your environment. So we had for 6 months just went through hell. My children were walking into walls, hallucinating, literally losing clumps of their hair like they were cancer patients. My one daughter regressed to a point of not being able to speak, and she was speaking in full sentences. And those are some of the calmer symptoms that we experienced. And so we were very fortunate that we had a doctor that early on that said, there's something in your environment. So at that point, it was the fairly quick process. Within a few weeks, we had hired our own mold inspector, and then we left. He told us the day of the inspection, you need to look and not look back and leave. And we did. And we had no home for 4 months. And I had 2 little girls and my husband who had just undergone a double carpal tunnel syndrome surgery. So he was an apprentice at the time and out of work. So for us, it was a bittersweet relief because we realized what was making us sick. And we were told that if we had stayed in that environment another 6 months, we all would have been in the ICU. And I believe them because we were deathly sick. And so it's kind of bittersweet of going, I didn't know this thing that I've just always, I grew up in a home where you cut off the mold off your bread or your cheese and you kept eating it. You saw it in your shower and you just wiped it away. It wasn't anything bad. And so that's where I started to go, there's got to be more to this mold thing if it's made my family this sick. And we got gaslit by a doctor for about 20 grand. And then we finally found a doctor in California that we still see today that has helped us in our healing journey. And she's really shown us how our bodies absorb toxins and specifically for us, how it impacted our neurological pathways. But it's been an incredible journey. And I think both Olivia and I think have more of an appreciation for what your body can handle and how your body can process things. And for us, that's what we went through. We went through molds. And thankfully, I didn't get CIRS, but I did get mast cell activation syndrome. I got a few other autoimmune conditions, and so did my daughters. But that was our start to realizing that mold can do something to your body that it shouldn't be doing.
Now, 2 questions. Number 1, how's your family now? Are the girls okay? Are they recovering?
We are 7 years out, and we're all at a point of maintenance. But it's just been this last year where we finally hit that point of being able to start doing things normally again, where I can be around when my girls can go to school. So it takes a while. And we learned that my dad told us, they housed us for a little bit when we didn't have a home. And he said, I thought it was going to be like the flu. I thought it was just going to come. It was going to go. You're going to go see a doctor. They're going to give you a shot. And I didn't realize till I saw you get off the plane and you looked like you were going to die in the airport that this was not the flu, that this was something much deeper and that it was going to take years for you to heal. So,
And this mold came from your house. What was it, up in the air conditioning vents? Is that where it was?
It was in our air conditioning units and it was in the walls. But it was in the air conditioning units mainly. And so it just came in and came over everything. We had the most levels of toxic molds in my daughter's bedrooms, which made sense. But yeah, it covered everything. So we didn't keep anything because we were so sick. It wasn't worth the risk for us to keep anything. So that's the other thing. And I know Libby and I have talked about this. That's the part that people forget too. You don't just lose your health and your finances. You also lose, like the grandma or the Bible that your great grandma gave you. Or for my husband, it was a music poster from his best friend that they'd gotten framed a special way. You lose all the sentimental stuff too with it. So yeah, that was our journey. And it only took 6 months for my family to go from being perfectly fine and healthy to being at the point of dying.
I'm just wondering, Olivia, how do you pursue a career in music when you have something like CIRS? Are you getting treatment now? Have you had to throw out all of your furniture? I'm just wondering, how do you do it?
Yeah, it's been a long road so this all started. I started getting sick back in 2016. And then 2018, we got out of there. But then 2020, I got diagnosed. But I was really grateful because we found the mold. It was actually my mom. Shout out Mama Joan, because she was like, Olivia, you were fine. Like before moving into this house. And now you moved in here and all of a sudden you're like struggling to get through the day. You're having I had surgeries and I was healing in that space. I had sinus surgery. I had my tonsils out because they just couldn't get rid of infections. And so I was healing in this space. And so I was really grateful that my mom put it together. And so the person that we had come out and look at the house gave us that instruction. You should not keep your belongings. So basically we got rid of everything. There was some stuff, depending on what material it was made from, we were able to clean in a certain way. But we did lose a lot of our stuff. And that is, it is an emotional situation. But then honestly, like, it was awful. But like, I feel like it really does teach you, like, okay, what is life? What is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
What am I putting my meaning into? What am I putting my faith into here? And kind of recognizing that the objects and the objective things and these tangible things is not what's bringing us happiness. It's the relationships that we have and the opportunities that we get to spread love and light. Like, that's what it is. And I don't think I recognize that until you kind of go through that and throw away all your stuff. And for a while with the music thing, once I got diagnosed and I knew what was going on, I'm pretty stubborn. And so I was like, I am not going to miss a gig. Like, I remember I got this like blood clot and I was like the hospital, and that was another thing. No one could make sense of it. And so, it was in the hospital, and I remember I had a gig in like an hour and a half. I was like, I got to get in the ER and get back out. Give me whatever meds you need, because I got to go to this gig. And so, like, I'm in the ER, I'm doing my hair in the bathroom, like, with this swollen arm. And, like, my mom, she knows the whole time. She's like, she's not going. She's not going to this gig. But I was so stubborn. It was the only gig that I had to miss like that, because then they ended up admitting me because I had a blood clot. So that was the only one, though. But I was like, I was really stubborn, so I take naps before and take naps after, just to kind of get through the day. Sometimes during breaks at a gig, I would just go out to my car and just kind of sleep or try to meditate a little bit, just to like calm my brain down, my body down a little bit. But I really was confused, because I felt like doing music and having to be mindful of what environments you're going into and traveling, I felt to really conflict the whole CIRS thing. So like it didn't really match.
Yeah.
And but I really felt still like in my heart that like, okay, there's a reason that both these things are happening. My faith really got me through, and just trusting like, all right, Lord, like, I know you're gonna make good of this. And like, it's been so beautiful being able to connect with Elizabeth, and like, just God's been moving in so many ways. And now we have CIRS Fest, being able to combine music and this illness to raise awareness and finances for those going through it. It's like, it's all starting to make a little bit of sense now, at least.
What kind of things is CIRS Fest going to be up to? You want to talk about that effort?
Yeah. Do you want to take that one, Elizabeth?
Oh, sure. What is it up to? A lot of fun. Probably a little bit of chaos, but in all the right ways. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we are, Windridge Farms in Dallastown is hosting us, and they've been very generous and donated the venue as their support of the CIRS Support Fund. So we've got to give them a shout out, because that's a big deal for them. We're going to have Addie Grace come on first. Then we have Cold Spring Union and Cody Tyler and Gypsy Convoy. And this is their second time for this event. They were here last year, and they were amazing. And they've been huge supporters of Olivia and this fund since then. And then Olivia is going to be closing. So the music is going to be great. People should come just for the music alone. I'm excited. My daughters wear Olivia's stuff around all the time. They are so excited to see her on stage again.
So sweet.
And then we've got some good food trucks coming out. We have a silent auction, a kids corner, a face painter that actually last year we had more adults do the face painting than the kids. It was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun.
People shoving their kids out of the way. Get out of here, Junior. I want
Push them out.
Yes.
I was going to make a statement that you'd have to edit out. I was going to say, if you show up, I might sneak the face painter some money and have them do a little Astro symbol on you instead. But, that.
No. We should say that Elizabeth lives in Houston, and
That's right.
John and I live in Philadelphia. So there's no love lost in our baseball
no love lost
situations here.
You can't see it, but we are repping two different teams right now. But
That's
no,
true.
it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have our merchandise out there, and everything that we're doing from this is going directly back to help people that have been impacted by CIRS that desperately need a diagnosis, and they just can't afford it because their medical insurance doesn't cover it. So that is what we're doing. We're excited. We're very excited.
Let me ask you, Elizabeth, what is the origin of Malachi's message? How did you come up with that as a name for your group?
In 2017, when my family went through our mold journey, we connected with a mold inspector. And that mold inspector's wife and I connected because we had very similar stories. And from that, it took us 3 years to create Malachi's message. And when we were coming up with the name, we wanted something that would honor our journeys and would honor everyone's journey that's coming after us. And her son, Malachi, who she was pregnant with at the time, because her body couldn't absorb nutrients properly because of their mold exposure, she ended up losing her infant. And his name was Malachi, which actually means angel or light or God's light or God's angel. And so we took that and went, how perfect to honor his life that couldn't be lived because of mold. How amazing. Like, let's honor that and honor everybody else's journey through that and show them light. And so we named it after Malachi.
Now, have you seen doctors and other health professionals get a little more on the ball on this? Have you seen an increase in people who are catching on to the fact that environment has that kind of an effect on your physical person?
I was actually just talking with our board chair about this the other day, because when we went through mold, and it's not even been a full decade, but when we went through molds, we could not finding a doctor within a state that you lived in was hard enough. More or less finding multiple doctors or multiple platforms for research or information. And now we're hitting a point where there is so much information, we're having to help people sort through what's good and bad information. So we've seen a huge intake and uptake of doctors starting to figure this out. And I think, honestly, one of the misconceptions with doctors that we've run into is that people just think doctors don't care. And we're realizing that some of the time it is that, but some of the time they haven't been trained. They haven't been trained on what it is or what to look for. And so you can go and tell them, this happened with my daughter's first pediatrician. Hey, I think we're in a moldy home. She's been exposed to mold. And she just said, she was honest. She goes, I don't know what to do with that, but I'm going to go research it. And she researched it. A lot of doctors won't take that next step. So there is many more practices and many more functional medicine doctors out there that are working through molds and working through the illnesses that come with it. There's been a lot, but we still have a long way to go.
Olivia, have you found as a patient with CIRS that you're getting good professional help? Have you found a community of professionals that can give you what you need?
Yes. So honestly, it's been quite a journey to find. Elizabeth's been on the ride with me. I was so grateful that the first doctor that I saw, he was able to see me. He diagnosed me, and his heart and mission was to try to charge the least amount that he possibly could and still run his business. He believed people. His name was Dr. Denizio. Unfortunately, he retired after 2 appointments with me, and then it was pretty tough to find a doctor after that. I mean, and that honestly, that was after all the doctors that I had seen. I had a PICC line for antibiotics that was given to me by infectious disease. And the infectious disease doctor looked at me after that failed, and she said, you're just gonna have to ride it out. I'm yeah, I'm gonna have to ride it out. What does that even mean? And she literally, I felt like I was on the end of my rope. I had nowhere to go. And then that's when we kind of went back around, let's dig in. We know that it was something with mold. Let's dig into that more. And that's where we found survivingmold.com. And it had different resources on there to find doctors who are shoemaker protocol certified. So that's the treatment that I'm in. And so that changed my life, because I am just I was literally at the end of my road. So after some other doctors in some scammy situations, I ended up finding Roots and Branches is where I go now. So if anyone, they're out of Colorado, but they do virtual stuff, and their hearts are very much like Dr. Denizio, my first doctor, and trying to just help people as much as they can without completely draining their bank account. So
we'll return to our talk with Olivia and Elizabeth in just a moment. But first, this soothing musical interlude.
CIRS Fest 2023 will take place October 29th from 12:30 to 6 p.m. at Windridge Farms in Dallastown, York County, Pennsylvania.
There will be live music, including a performance by Olivia, food trucks, face painting, a silent auction, a kids' corner, and the Pennsylvania Dairymen's Association milkshakes made famous at the Pennsylvania Farm Show. Buy your tickets online before the day of the show, and you'll get a voucher giving you $1 off a milkshake.
All proceeds from the fest benefit the CIRS Support Fund, which ensures that those who have CIRS symptoms and cannot afford to see a CIRS certified physician are able to see a physician, have a follow-up appointment, and receive proper testing, both for their bodies as well as their homes.
Olivia has written a song about her struggles with CIRS. Before we get back to the discussion about CIRS and mold-related illnesses, let's listen to that song, Body Will Break, by Olivia Farabaugh.
It's a war zone. Under my skin there are gravestones for my body and mind, fighting for the throne just to both end up alone. 'Cause I know is both sides don't seem to be listening as my soul screams between them, falling to pieces. So settle down and listen to me now. Mine, I can see your side. It doesn't seem fair that you feel held back in these bones. You've been trapped now, body. I know you're trying for me. I can see all this pressure that you're under to be what you once were. So now give this body a break, or this body will break. No, it ain't easy to show sympathy to the enemy, but we're given the same breath to breathe, just one life, so please, can we live in peace? Mine, I can see your side. It doesn't seem fair that you feel held back in these bones. You've been trapped now, body. I know you're trying for me. I can see all this pressure that you're under to be what you once were. So might give this body a break, or this body will break. I know there's two sides to every story, but who really gets the glory when both sides are falling apart? Mine, I can see your side. It doesn't seem fair that you feel held back in these bones. You've been trapped now, body. I know you're trying for me. I can see all this pressure that you're under to be what you once were. So might give this body a break, or this body will
this is something that both of you have brought up in the last couple of minutes, and that is that there's a door open here for scammers, a door open for people, people who are desperate to find out what's wrong with them, and it's somewhere tied in with their environment, but they're not sure why, and doctors can't figure it out. So yeah, there seems to be an opening here for quacks or gaslighters to come in. What sort of precautions do people have to take to make sure that they don't get involved in any of that?
Elizabeth, you have a really great,
Elizabeth?
Sure. I think there are a few questions you can ask when you're walking in to see a doctor. So the first day is to ask them, one, if they even know what mold exposure can do to your body and what CIRS can do to your body. Because there are still functional medicine doctors that don't know that, and they're claiming to be functional medicine. One of the very simple things, but is a big red flag, if you go see a functional medicine doctor and they tell you your treatment plan, and it is the exact same treatment plan for every single patient that they see, and they're not willing to adapt or adjust it, that's a red flag. Because as you go through mold or through any toxic exposure, all of our bodies react differently. And so for somebody to say, here's my cookie cutter protocol, you're going to pay, $5,000 your first appointment, you're going to pay, $1,000 for each appointment afterwards, and we're not going to adjust this at all. Run very quickly, because if they're not willing to look at your specific DNA and genetics, it's not worth your money, and they're going to take you for a ride. The other small detail would be medicine. So if they have medicines in their office that you can only buy through them that don't have any ingredients on them, and they're not willing to tell you what is in them, that sounds crazy. When you say it out loud, you go, why would somebody do that? When you're sick and your brain is inflamed and you're desperate, you're almost willing to do anything to get better. Because if I can get better, I can go make a paycheck to help my family because we just lost everything. And we had one doctor that did that to my family. And it took my husband, who wasn't living with us at the time because he was at work, he flew in for an appointment and he said, what are you doing? They're not telling you what's in any of the supplements they're giving you or the girls. And they're just telling you have to buy them. That's not okay. And it took somebody else going, oh, that's not okay. You're right. That's not okay. What am I doing? One of the other small things is if you can find a doctor that's not going to charge you to read your labs. That also sounds crazy, but there are many doctors that you have your appointments, you get your labs, and then they charge you between $300 to $1,000 to come back and sit with them for 5 minutes to go over your labs. That's another red flag. That just be careful. If they're willing to sit with you, review your results in depth, that's like another appointment that you're paying for. That makes sense. But just to come in and say, I need $300 for 5 minutes for me to hand you the report, I'd be very skeptical of that. Those are some of the main things in the medical side of it that we look at and go, you should probably not be seeing that person anymore.
Interesting. Yeah. It sounds like a hidden cost.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like, they know you really want treatment and they're making, they're holding it up and say, well, if you want it, you're going to pay.
Yes.
Olivia, I know if you go on your YouTube channel, you and your husband have taken people on a tour of the house that you built specifically to your requirements so that it'll take care of your health. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. And Elizabeth, have you and your family had to go to extraordinary means to get a house that you can live in?
Yes. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges for people who have gone through mold exposure and have really reactive bodies or have CIRS, whatever the case is. But the first step is getting out of exposure, and that can be so difficult. And I didn't realize how difficult, but we ended up building a tiny house, and because we knew we wanted to move to Nashville. And so my parents were so incredibly kind, and my husband he's actually in school right now to be a nurse anesthetist. And so we knew that our income was going to change a lot. So we were already living with my parents for 2 years before the move, just to save up for the move. And we're looking at apartments and doing the math in our head. And we're like, anything that's a new build that would be safe for me is so expensive. And not even all new builds are safe now that I know what I know with some of the building materials. But like, it was just insane. So we were like coming up on the move date and we're like, what are we going to do for a living? And I always loved tiny homes. Like I always just loved watching YouTube videos. So I kind of brought it up to Kane and was like, so what if we just would build a tiny house, you know? And he wasn't 100% for it at first, but after we started looking at it, we're like, okay, I really think we could do this. And so we ended up meeting with the builder. And we worked with an environmental professional who's versed in CIRS to help us make sure that we had proper ventilation, proper building materials. We were basically trying to make the best case scenario because with tiny houses, there are some situations that you can find out there where the ventilation and humidity control wasn't taken into consideration. And it's like awful. So that was our big fear, but we have absolutely loved it so far. It's 12 wide, so it's a little bit bigger. It's a big tiny house, and it's 30 long, so it's been wonderful.
What is there a space definition for tiny house?
So I think that it's 600 square foot?
Okay, all right, so that's what it is?
So Caden is really great at numbers. My husband's really great at numbers. And so I usually ask him, like, what is the square footage? I should know, but we don't.
So, and how long have you been living in this palatial estate?
So this December will be 2 years.
Oh, well.
Yes.
And you haven't killed each other yet. Congratulations.
I know, right? Thank you. And not yet. We really loved, we actually, we designed it knowing like he was going to be in school. And I'm a musician. And so we're like technically living in a tiny house with someone trying to study all the time and like someone trying to write music all the time. Like that doesn't really work. So we created like a first floor bedroom, studio, laundry room, office, whatever it wants to be that day. And so there's 2 like doors of separation. So he usually studies where I'm at now and I'm in there playing. And it's working out really well.
Great.
Elizabeth, you've got a whole family to take care of. And you were, when you moved out of that moldy house, like you said, you were homeless for a while. How long did it take for you to find a place where you guys could live and survive?
Well, we actually just moved into our first home since then a month ago.
All right.
So my husband is a lineman, not football. You would know that if you saw him. He is not a football player. But hope he doesn't listen to this. He climbs poles for a living.
He's a lineman for the county.
We decided after not living together for 4 months because we couldn't, that we would start traveling with him for work. And so he took on the lineman that could be on the road if we needed to. And so we lived in a pull behind trailer for about a year and a half. And then we moved into a fifth wheel trailer and my husband is still living in that. My daughters and I moved into a townhouse about a month ago. And part of it was I was terrified to move into a building because I know what I know now. And after working with the nonprofit, hearing everyone's stories and talking to builders, and the corruption isn't only in the medical industry, right? In the mold world, it's huge in the building industry, in the remediation industry. And so we found a townhouse that opened up very randomly. And we had a licensed mold assessment consultant come in and inspect it. And she was blown away. She's like, I've never seen a house this safe to live in. And she's been doing this for a long time. And so we went, well, we should probably consider it then. So this is the first home we have found in 7 years that we could look at and say, you know, we feel safe enough to bring my children and myself into this living space. So we did the fifth wheel thing for a long time. And we took very good care of our trailer, which is why we were able to live in it that long. Because normally that lifespan isn't that great with mold.
Wow. That's amazing. 7 years. Unbelievable. Really amazing. Not to say that Olivia isn't also amazing. Tiny houses are amazing. You know, even when everybody is healthy. Right? You're right.
Elizabeth's story is incredible. Like, her and Emily, both like the 2 co-founders of Malachi's Message, like they have gone through things that no one should go through. And that's what so many, I mean, they were bringing so much hope to CIRS. So I'm like 100%, yes, Elizabeth, that is amazing. It is amazing. It is. I need to be honored. Like, it's amazing to do that with the whole family. And that's what Caden and I mean, it was him and he wasn't sick, and I was the only one. I was the only one affected in that way I was. And so Caden and I think often about, like, man, how do people do this with kids? How do people do this when multiple, like, both partners are sick, like both spouse, and so it's incredible that the perseverance and everyone who's out there struggling with this, who has families, and Elizabeth and Emily included. I mean, it's really inspiring.
So, Olivia, you've written at least one song, Body Will Break. How else are you using music to get this idea across, to get this campaign going?
Yeah, so that, again, like I said earlier, I feel like there's a reason I have music in this illness. And so I'm going to use both as much as I can to mesh together. And one of those ways was through my last album called Transparent. A percentage of all of the proceeds from the album are going to help and going towards the CIRS support fund. So I wanted it to go full circle. So we were able to get sponsorship, just incredible sponsors and people who helped me along my own healing journey, help support the recording of this album. And the songs off the album are based off of my own experiences, but also experiences people shared with me on social media. And I feel like, especially now as the CIRS Support Fund has, gotten out into the world a little bit more, and I've talked to more people, I feel like our stories are so important, like sharing our stories. And I think there's this layer of shame that comes along with chronic illness that tries to keep us from sharing our stories, because it's either we're not bringing in the money we can, we're not living the lives that we think that we want to live. And so I think there's this shame that comes over us that makes us want to hide and not speak about what we've been going through for some reason. And so I just I want to encourage anyone out there too, because Hope Lives Here is CIRS Fest is the slogan for this year. And that was because Christy Barnes, another CIRS warrior out there, she shared her story with us. And so it's just this snowball effect, like sharing your story. Who knows, maybe a song will get written about it, or maybe a whole music festival will be about it. I don't know, something will happen. And I was so inspired because whenever I was at my lowest point with my music, or not with my music, I'm sorry, with my health, I was on Instagram and I was awaiting some results. I think it was an MRI or something, but I was in the waiting room. And I was scrolling, and then an ad popped up and it said, someone right now needs to hear what you're going through in real time. You don't need to wait until you have it all figured out to share what you've been going through, because someone needs to hear it. And so that's what inspired really starting to share my story, and then connected Elizabeth and I. So I just kind of had this epiphany of this all stems from sharing our stories. The album, this relationship with Elizabeth, everything. Hope Lives Here. So just share your story, whatever is listening. Just don't be afraid. Don't let shame stop you.
And Elizabeth, are there other festivals around the country that do the same thing as this festival?
No, there aren't. This is the only one that we know of that does anything like this. We were the first nonprofit that came out in the U.S. For helping people with mold, which was incredible. And then this was also the first CIRS or CIRS support fund that existed. So we're really we're doing it all. We're trying to create awareness and show people why it's important to help. So no, this is the first one. And this was Olivia's brainchild. The first time we talked, it was incredible. And the connection, we realized that we needed to be working together. But she, in the first hour of our conversation, which was supposed to last 15 minutes and it lasted 2.5 hours, she brought it up and she said, my dream is to do a music festival that brings in funds to help people and brings awareness. And so for me, sitting back, I feel so honored oftentimes with her to see what God's doing in and through her, and to see this go, look, you had no clue how this was going to happen 1.5 years ago, and we're doing this for year 2 now, and it's bigger and it's better. That's incredible. So it's a lot of fun for me. It is. It's a lot of fun to see Olivia just growing and doing her thing, and then to see it intersect with my world. it's been good. Yeah.
Terrific. Can you give people an idea of where they could go to get more information if they think they have a mold problem or CIRS or some sort of illness that might be associated with that, where they could go to get information, and also where they can go to get information on the festival?
Well, I can do the first one. I can do so Olivia said surviving mold already for CIRS and mold. That's a big one. They have a lot of good information. Malachi's Message, our website, I am obviously going to say that. If you want to learn more about mold, we also offer a peer-to-peer online support group through Malachi's Message that's free. And so if people just want to have a conversation with somebody and see if this is something that they're walking through, they can also join that. And that can be found on Facebook if you look at Malachi's Message peer-to-peer, a support group. But there are amazing resources out there that exist for mold and CIRS, but those are probably, I mean, you can look at Dr. Jill Krista, Dr. Jill Carnahan, Dr. Eric Dorninger, Roots to Branches. We absolutely love him. Those are some of the ones that have been very consistent in their desire to care for people. Even if they are in the middle of trying to sort how that works, their heart is in the right place. So for the mold side of things, those are some of Dr. Ann Shippey too. I can't forget that. Or Dr. Jenna Saxton. There are a lot of doctors we've come in contact with now that we go, man, where were you a decade ago? But it's an honor and a privilege to get to know some of these people and to see them actually help and to care enough to help. So that is the main places. And then social media groups online. I would just say be very careful if you're going through mold. The social media groups online can be incredibly overwhelming. So before you jump into them, be willing to set some boundaries for yourself on how long you're going to be in there. Because if you're trying to find answers, the emotions of everybody else trying to find answers can kind of snowball and you start to find yourself in even a darker place, which isn't helpful. But Olivia, I'll let you take the CIRS Fest one because this is your baby.
Yeah, I think that was all such good advice too. And just surrounding yourself with positivity. I found myself in the wormhole of overeducating myself. And I mean, education is huge. Don't get me wrong. And also a resource that if you're going to want to educate yourself is the Surviving and Thriving. And it's, what is the rest of that title, that book, Elizabeth? Do you remember?
I've only ordered 300 copies of it. I should remember. It's on our website though. If you go to the CIRS page, it is on our website in the welcome packet.
Yes. So we give out a welcome packet and it talks about just different tools that can help while you're waiting. And so there's a lot that's on the incredible page that Elizabeth and the team put together for the CIRS Support Fund. And that is also where you can find information for CIRS Fest. And so go to malachismessage.com and you'll see the tab at the top and it'll say CIRS Fest 2023. Click on that. It's also on all our social media pages as well. And there's a Facebook event. So basically, wherever you are, you can find information on CIRS Fest.
All right. That sounds terrific. Well, thanks both of you for being here and for talking about your survival, but also talking about hope, because I think that's a good point to make, Olivia, that there's hope for everybody out there who suffers from these, and they just have to know which path to take to get there. And the CIRS Fest is one way to start. So thanks very much, Elizabeth Cripe and Olivia Farabaugh, for being here with us. And of course, everybody goes to the CIRS Fest and go to malachismessage.com as well to check out what you can do to help. Thanks, guys.
Really great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for listening to the Musical Innertube.
Our lovely little podcast is available everywhere good podcasts are found. Listen on your favorite platform, and if you like what you hear, please give us a good rating.
And spread the word. Tell your friends about the Innertube and let them know they can subscribe to the podcast on our website, musicalinnertube.com.
There you can listen to all of our podcasts, see pictures and biographies of our guests, and contact us. You can even click on the microphone button in the lower right corner to leave us a voicemail.
And don't forget to leave your email address on our Talk to the Tube page so we can stay in touch.
And you can email us directly at musicalinnertube@gmail.com. CIRS.com.
And as always, thanks to virtual band Car Radio Dog for our theme music.